Figure out your purpose, what's important to you, and then you can start to think about your goals, and then you can start to think about how to achieve those goals.
When we see our purpose as enjoying pleasure, we value things in life for the benefit that they give us.
I guess the danger of that thought process is that you can also use people to basically provide joy and then just discard.
It does not matter how little or how much we have. What matters is how it is used.
Ultimately, what is the purpose of these monies?
Capital is meant to be put to good use.
I think the virtues provide an objective mechanism in which to stay tempered and on the path towards that end goal.
They are a superior tool to use to fulfill these goals because they speak more directly to our humanity and because they speak more fully of those good habits.
Welcome to the Ordered Life Podcast, where we talk about how to integrate the virtues into our life and our finances. My name is Anthony Delazari.
Sean Gregory, Portfolio Manager.
AJ Sanson, Associate Investment Advisor.
We are with Serviam Capital at I Private Wealth, and our goal is to serve you so that your finances may serve your goals and that your goals may serve the good. All right, so this will be the pilot episode going over what the ordered life is, why we called it this, and the importance of understanding the ordered life and fundamentally the axioms that we're taking when we're going into this. It's basically a key concept that underlies how you think. The good is the framework, and then we want to outline the axioms that we'll take in this discussion. Fundamentally, an axiom that is important is that we want to be the best version of ourselves. In order to do that, we need to live our values across every area of our life. Agreed?
Sounds good.
Okay, perfect. So the main question we seek to answer in this podcast is why live an ordered life, or why an ordered life is desirable, and what our finances have to do with living an ordered life. To do this, we first must outline what it means to have an ordered life and how we must conceptualize money in order to follow through with this. We explore how the virtues, which are habitual dispositions to do good across a variety of situations, can come into our lives. These virtues enable us to be the best versions of ourselves by making wise decisions, detaching ourselves from what makes us unhappy, helping us to see through difficult decisions, treating others well, striving for greatness, and recognizing our strengths and weaknesses. So the first part of the episode will be on the importance of values when striving to live an ordered life, and the second part will discuss where finances and how conceptualizing money falls into this. Underlying our discussion of the ordered life is that we all have purpose. That because we have purpose, there is a way we ought to be. And that way we ought to be is the best version of ourselves. And being the best version of ourselves will enable us to be joyful, right? So we want to be joyful. We have a purpose. In order to be joyful, we have to live out our purpose, which means understand that there's a way we ought to be, and the ought to be is how we're going to articulate and understand ourselves. Critical to being the best version of ourselves, our purpose sets our values, and our values need to be lived in action. This action is virtue. So what are some examples of purpose? So when Kierkegaard, a Danish philosopher from the 1800s, said there are three categories of purpose. The first one is somebody who just sees their purpose in life as fleeting fun. This means they value pleasure. This fleeting fun is enjoyed through pleasure, which is enjoyment of a thing that doesn't last beyond the temporal act producing it. When we see our purpose as enjoying pleasure, we value things in life for the benefit that they give us. Under this conception, we value money for the fun that it can provide us. We trade not having fun for the opportunity to have more fun later on. But fun, pleasure, enjoyable feelings are the end pursuit of somebody who believes their purpose in life is solely to have fun.
Mental notes.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
Take the baton, AJ.
Oh my goodness. In effort of, say, seeking pleasure and happiness from the sake of these fleeting activities, I'd imagine that at some point it'd be probably just perfectly fine and fun and probably not need anything else until you get to the point where you're searching for meaning from that.
Yeah.
A great meal is a great meal. A great meal by yourself is good, but not as good as in the company of others. Or essentially, in that example, is you can pursue something that brings joy, but then you start looking that other people bring you joy too. And I guess the danger of that, just in that thought process, is that you can also use people to basically provide joy and then just discard.
Yeah.
Which I think is a very dangerous, slippery slope.
Yeah. It's interesting because Viktor Frankl says that man can endure anything except for lack of purpose. And I think when somebody just views everything in the world as a means of having fun and as a means of pleasure, that is lacking purpose, because nothing has purpose beyond just what it provides the person himself.
It's not deep enough. It
Yeah,
leaves you
yeah,
wanting
exactly.
more.
Yeah. There's no meaning. Like maybe there is purpose, like there's something that you might be doing, but it's not. It's probably like the lowest level of purpose that you can possibly have.
I also find it's very egocentric.
Oh, 100%. Yes,
It's because it's
extremely
just all
self-centered.
about me. I need to utilize all these things just for myself.
Yeah, everything has value insofar as it gives me pleasure. Yeah, and yeah, no, outside of that, it doesn't. Yeah. All right, shall we move on to the second conception? Perfect. All right. So the second person that Kierkegaard talks about is a person who lives their life according to the good. This shift from seeing pleasure as one's purpose to seeing the good as one's purpose is to recognize that things and people have value in themselves rather than value because of a perceived individual benefit. For example, a good friend has value not simply because we can have fun with them, but because they can help us to be the best version of ourselves and pursue the good. Since things have value in themselves, it follows that there's a proper way that we should use them. There's a best way to use things, and there are improper ways to use things. So in other words, we've introduced morality, or right and wrong, into our being. Since I value the good, the decisions I make not only benefit me now, but they often result in some type of sacrifice now for my benefit later on, or for another person's benefit. Under this conception needs to be something that helps us do good. That good can be spending quality time with our friends or family, supporting a family, and supporting a business that has a purpose, etc.
We're making hand gestures of who should go first.
Yeah.
How I perceive this particular description is that where people aren't used specifically for our own benefit, there's almost a shared emphasis on a cooperation of sorts, in which you're seeking another to pursue something that is good, is how I'm processing this.
Yeah.
And I hear from your definition, it's almost as if it's how can I cooperate with this individual to get what I want? But I'm wondering whether or not there's also the other way around, in which this other individual can cooperate with us for what they want as well. Unless I read it completely incorrect.
I heard it that this person is good not because of the pleasure that they can provide to me, but they are good because they are a person, and that is in itself where their goodness comes from. And it pulls you outside of yourself, and it turns your attention on others and on meaning beyond just this notion of pleasure, what's good for me, what's in it for me.
Yeah. In Kierkegaard's book, Either Or, which is how he details these different lifestyles and these different ways of living, if that's what his philosophical project is all about, the person who pursues pleasure sees this will to pursue pleasure as, well, we have this desire for the good, the true, the beautiful, but he thinks the good, the true, the beautiful are just fleeting pleasures. So the way that the second character in his book tries to win over the first character who enjoys fleeting pleasure, he talks about how it's more beautiful to have good connection. It's more beautiful to have a job that you enjoy. It's more beautiful on the weekend to spend time with your family because these things are good, right? It's just intrinsically these things are good. So it does recognize this conception. It does recognize the intrinsic good in the world. But yeah, I think AJ, to your point, it can end up falling into, well, we use people for the good, right? Even though we now have this view of morality, we can still use people for the good, as opposed to recognizing the good as something transcendental that we need to be subject to. And subject to just meaning that, hey, I recognize that I don't determine it, which this actually kind of goes into the third purpose that a person can have, which is to view the good as a transcendental person. Thomas Aquinas says that by the good, we are talking about God, who is goodness itself. This person sees their purpose as having a relationship with the good as being opposed to the good as an abstract concept or the good as defined by societal norms.
Yeah. It's not enough to say that there is good and bad, but that there is objective good and bad beyond just our own perception of it.
Yeah, good for you and good for me. In this sense, what Kierkegaard is talking about is this objective good that we can have a relationship with. And obviously Thomas Aquinas says by good we are talking about God himself. So such a worldview requires faith, which is, as we'll define it, the lifelong endeavor of accepting an unseen supernatural reality. While today many view faith as something helpful, but not rational because it cannot be proved by conventional means, the simplest argument for God's existence is that each person has a longing for infinite happiness, yet nothing in the natural world can satiate that happiness. Therefore, there must be something supernatural that can. It follows that to experience true joy, one must act in accordance with the good in all their affairs. One does this by properly ordering their priorities and values so that what is most important is at the top and what is least important is at the bottom. Why? Because there are certain things in life that are better than others. And there are certain priorities and values that help us become the best version of ourselves, and others that distract and hinder our becoming the best version of ourselves. With this concept of our purpose, money becomes a tool, a means for actualizing the good in the world, and also a means for us to become good ourselves. It does not matter how little or how much we have. What matters is how it is used, because we are the ones who are capable of doing good and actualizing the good. The money is not a good in itself. So to live the ordered life, we first need faith that we have a purpose, and that critical to fulfilling that purpose is learning how to value what is most crucial. From faith, we then have hope that by integrating order into our life, we begin filling our heart's desire for true and sincere joy. Then from hope, we need to act in a generous and charitable way, because we need to reevaluate how we value things. And so part of properly ordering the different parts of our life is going to be giving up parts that we like more than we should, and giving more time and attention to things that we may have neglected or not liked as much, but that are indeed good.
I like the sailing metaphor. You can have the fastest, most unsinkable ship, the most precise, advanced navigation equipment, but unless you know where you're going, it's completely useless.
Yeah.
So in ordered life, there is a sense of structure and hierarchy, but there's also a sense of sequence.
Yeah.
You have to go to first principles and then move backwards.
Yeah.
Figure out your purpose, what's important to you, and then you can start to think about your goals, and then you can start to think about how to achieve those goals.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would agree with that, is having the end in mind, and then all the actions that are ordered in a particular way towards making progress toward that end goal.
For us, our work is in finance, which has its place in this order. As Anthony said, money and wealth are not ends in and of themselves, but they're the means. They enable the ends. So yeah, what is money? Money is a placeholder, but we should never lose sight of the fact that money is meant to be spent. For investing, we have capital. What is capital for? You can say it's to produce an income, to grow in value. Those attributes are only a byproduct of its greater purpose, though. Capital is meant to be put to good use, to fund projects that build up the world in some useful way, to be productive, to make our lives better. So keeping the ends in mind first helps you order how to use these things, these tools.
Yeah. No, and I think it's tough because sometimes people see using capital as good, as opposed to having capital and being able to use it isn't a good in itself, right? We are the ones who are the moral agents. We're the ones who are capable of actualizing the good. It's not just, did you spend this money? Did you save this money? It's to what end are you doing that? Because it's not good in itself to save, right? Like, we'll have a discussion on prudence later on. If you don't need to be saving a massive amount, look for ways to be generous with your money. Find different projects, different charities that you should be giving to. In other cases, you might be spending way too much money. It's like, hey, why are you so attached to these experiences, to these material things? Like, why is it that you find so much value in these? Is there something amiss that we can work on in how you conceptualize how you're spending money so that you can better use it by potentially saving it for later on, saving it for the goals that you say matter to you, but then you're not following up with your finances. And part of the ordered life is ensuring that our finances align with our values and our goals, because it's very difficult in some cases to separate these two things, especially for young people. I think in their 20s, it's very easy to just spend on whatever short-lived experience because so many things are so daunting. And if we don't have that end goal of how we're going to use things, then it's kind of like, well, what's the point in trying to have structure?
If the temptation for a young person is to lose sight of the bigger picture and to be spending your money frivolously, then the temptation on the other side for someone who is older and was retired, has spent their life saving and amassing wealth and capital, they've forgotten what it was for.
Yeah.
The temptation is that they've forgotten what it's for. They forgot that they are supposed to use it.
Yeah.
And that a lot of people, retirees, will end up scrounging and pinching every penny so that they can continue to save as if that was the point. But it was not. It was to be used for something. So you can definitely fall into error on both sides.
So I like the reminder in which we have to have an end goal in mind. Otherwise, it's very easy in which the goal in itself can shift to, let's just amass a huge amount of these capital resources, these monies. And then that ends up being the goal in itself. And then the goals end up being fleeting goals in which they are activities to pursue happiness in that particular moment.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good opportunity to take inventory is ultimately what is the purpose of these monies? Is it these resources?
Yeah. And I'd say as well, to bring that point to an even higher standard, is when we implement the virtues into our life, we're not just taking this habitual disposition to do the good and maximizing it. Any sort of virtue has to have this kind of middle ground, as Aristotle talks about, where it's a balancing act. It's a scale, right? It's not just hitting it right in the middle. In some cases, we're going to need different parts or different aspects of virtue in different ways. For example, this is what my philosophy prof talked about in, I think, first year was, if there's 10 donuts in front of you, the middle of that 10 is just to have 5 donuts. Well, it's probably not the best number of donuts to have. You probably only need like 1. Maybe if like you really want, you can have 2, but if you struggle with gluten, then have 0. And so in that case, like you want to have less. But with the virtues, we can fall into that same temptation for a young person to not save and for an older person to just hold on to every penny. We need virtues to be active. They're not just these passive habits, they're active habits, so we still have to be aware of how we're using and how we're applying to find that via media, that middle way.
Yeah, the virtues are the essential good habits of a life lived timeless, time-tested through the centuries. They are the perfect framework to view, also for our work, for financial investment decisions. They're the perfect framework to view all aspects of your life, but also finance, which is where people, I don't think, consider how they can be virtuous with how they spend and save and invest their money. Mm-hmm. We have tools. We have academic research to know what are good habits, good ways to develop a financial plan or invest your money. And we have behavioral finance that begins to describe the ways we can fall short of that. But because the virtues are all encompassing, they are a superior tool to use to fulfill these goals because they speak more directly to our humanity and because they speak more fully of those good habits.
Yeah. No, and I'd say one of the things that I loved about the virtues is that they are universal. They're all encompassing. They can be lived in every single way and they're non-contradictory. They all help you get to the same end goal, which is to pursue the good, which is beautiful because there's not many other things and ways of life that help you do that. There's diets that help you pursue the good in one area of your life. There's workout plans that are tangential to that with good health. There's great education that you can get from universities or online courses or certifications you can get to be a better professional and set yourself up for success. But the virtues underlie all of that because they're these dispositions that we can use in every single decision that we make, in every single situation we find ourselves in, every single relationship that we're in, that help us to be the best version of ourselves, to know how to pursue the good, to know how to actualize the good.
The other thing I'll say about the virtues is the language of the virtues itself is a powerful tool.
That's true, yeah.
When you can identify those good habits, you can see that bullseye on the target that you're aiming for. And when you can identify those bad habits, those vices, you're more able to recognize in yourself when you might be falling astray.
Yeah.
I think the virtues provide let's call it a toolkit to be reminded of, to find the reasonable approach to finances and not fall into excess or extremes, essentially, is where I'm coming to, is an objective mechanism in which to stay tempered and on the path towards that end goal.
Yeah, the metaphor that lives in my head is your goals, your purpose, whatever is important to you. That's the house that you're trying to build or whatever project you're trying to construct. And the virtues are the correct tools. When you need a screwdriver, you don't want to be stuck with a hammer or vice versa. So having the right tools so that they enable you to build that house in the best way possible.
Yeah, and I'd say having all of them too, right? Because obviously it's the joke about anyone who holds a hammer sees everything as a nail. Having that disposition, what that might be good, can be good, but if you only have one virtue and you miss out on all the others, hence why we want to cover a breadth of virtues in this podcast, you're just going to view everything in one way and you want to lose the universality of the virtues and the universe of virtues.
So that's what we're striving for in this podcast, to talk about how to live an ordered life from our point of view as financial planners, how to use the virtues to see that through as fully as possible. And we hope you enjoy.
Perfect. Thank you for listening.
This podcast has been prepared by Sean Gregory, who is a portfolio manager, and AJ Sanson, who is an associate investment advisor for IA Private Wealth Inc. Opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the portfolio manager and investment advisor only and do not necessarily reflect those of IA Private Wealth Inc. IA Private Wealth Inc. is a member of the Canadian Investor Protection Fund and the Canadian Investment Regulatory Organization. IA Private Wealth is a trademark and business name under which IA Private Wealth Inc. operates.